And it's about that time, folks. We see coronal hole wind stream dropping off here. Solar activity kicking up. We see a new sunspot forming, 2747, as 2746 evaporates. We're going to talk cosmic rays, coronal hole magnetic connections, cosmology, and more. First, we're going to look at the sun in 171 angstroms. Sunspot 2746 is right in the Earth-facing zone, just south of the equator. Cycle 24 sunspot once again. Let's look at 304 angstroms also. This is the last 9 hours of solar activity. 10.7 centimeter radio flux holding steady at 68 solar flux units. Here's a 193 angstroms view. And we see a current coronal hole magnetic connection, raising Earth's earthquake risk. This southern coronal hole system down here is responsible for that. Lastly, we're going to look at the flatogram, not the flatogram, the intensitygram. It's a very small umbra, and that is an alpha class sunspot, folks. There you have it. Very small sunspot, and it looks like it's actually degrading now. We're going to come back at the end of the video and look at the magnetogram. Here's the close-up of sunspot 2747, courtesy solarham.net. Next, we'll go to the real-time solar wind, and we see a relaxation of that solar wind velocity that was very heightened yesterday. And the solar wind speed is now dropped down to about 530 kilometers per second. Solar wind density, not particularly high either. 1.63, in fact, quite low. We see a phi angle close to 180 degrees. Looks like an ongoing magnetic connection to that coronal hole. If you're in an earthquake-prone region, be aware of this and have a plan. There's the ACE data. Next, we're going to look at cosmic rays real quick. I'll do a little breakdown here in a minute. Here's the Apatity neutron monitor. Here's the Barentsburg neutron monitor. Next, we'll look at Athens. Now keep in mind, folks, there are a lot of cosmic ray detectors around the planet, and there are even some projects where you'll be able to use an old smartphone as a cosmic ray monitor in your home. As these things are, we're trying to trace these things to point sources. So anyway, there's Athens. Look at Mexico City. We always look at the same monitors because there's a lot of data out there, folks. There's Mexico City. Next, Moscow. Big swings in the variation there at Moscow. And finally, we'll look at Oulu and a couple of monitors in Antarctica. There's Oulu. There's DOMC Antarctica. And there's DOMB Antarctica. Let's talk about how there's lots of channels out there, YouTube channels, that are telling people that cosmic rays are at their modern maximum. The more I look into it, the less true it seems. Here we've got this is the South Africa setup here. This is actually I believe that's a Zambian website. And here's the data from 5 different monitors, all showing higher cosmic ray flux levels around 2009. So let's look at another tab here to show some more data. Now, I'm pretty sure a lot of this nonsense about cosmic rays now being higher than cosmic rays were at the last solar minimum is coming from University of Delaware Bartol Research Institute, as they have probably the largest neutron monitor program in the world. We will put links to this site in the description after the live stream. What we did is we pulled some archive data here. This is Mexico City up in the upper left, clearly showing higher cosmic ray levels. Now this is around 2008, 2009, and this graph is from January 99 to 2019. You can see clearly slightly higher levels at the last solar minimum than at current levels. Also, Oulu is one that's easy to pull data from, so we did that. This graph's a little better looking. You can see significantly higher levels here also at the last solar minimum around 2009. Now that we've clarified that, we're going to include some more cosmic ray websites in the description below the video, such as this one here, and I don't know how to pronounce any of that stuff, and I'm not going to try. Here's where stuff's located in the solar system. And welcome to the Milky Way galaxy. Milky Way galaxy team for the win.
Congratulations.
And there is where things will be in 1 week. Full moon. All right, and just bear with me one moment, folks. I apologize for the dead air. Next, we're going to look at Coronagraphs. These are the LASCO Coronagraphs here. We'll just play them both, as there has also been a coronal mass ejection. I don't know if you were aware. And thanks for tuning in, folks. I appreciate your leaving comments. So we'll play the LASCO C2 and C3 in unison here, as Venus swings around the backside of the sun on the C3. There is a coronal mass ejection. We're going to see if it's Earth-facing in just a moment. It's not Earth-facing. All right, so you can see it on the C2 and the C3. It's located down here, and it appears to be heading in a southwesterly direction. Here's the latest stuff from Stereo A, and this will give you the best view, actually. You're going to see this right out here. And I'm going to bring this back so you can see it. All right, I don't know what's going on. Anyway, there's a small coronal mass ejection. From this image, it looks like it could be Earth-facing, but from the LASCO images, it does not appear to be Earth-facing, so no worries there. You don't know until you check, folks. Looking at magnetosphere movies here. First we'll look at density, then pressure. As we see, we're back to a very low density, so there's going to be a bunch of striations as the solar wind diminishes in density and speed. This is 4 hours of data for you new viewers out there, and thanks to our new subscribers, and our donors especially. Here's the pressure over the same period of time, courtesy University of Michigan. So we see a ramping down of the solar wind speed from yesterday when it was nearly 700 kilometers per second. Now more like 500 kilometers per second. And with a very low density, so you see a pretty low pressure. We'll look at ground perturbations. We're only going to look at the globe view here, as we don't expect to see very much going on. Nothing like yesterday or the day before when we had geomagnetic storm conditions. If you weren't aware of the magnetic excursion going on right now, folks, the South Pole is creeping into the southern Indian Ocean. And we have two North Poles, one weakening one over northern Canada and one stronger one over Siberia. Anyway, there's that data. Let's keep it going. Here's where stuff is above my head. Head to in-the-sky.org to make your own sky map. And I got to refresh because it's not 4:35, it's 5:18. Pardon the lateness on the video. Coronagraphs coming up with some pretty controversial stuff. By the way, this star map is so good that you can actually animate it. Now, if you want to see when Mercury will rise or when the sun will rise, there's going to be another planetary pile up in the sky today as Venus, Mercury, Mars, and the sun are all up there at once. We're not going to talk smAsho mission, but smAsho mission is in the links below the video. Thanks to our patrons, that is our primary source of income on this channel, as YouTube pays us precisely $0.00, which makes 0 cents since our channel's monetized, right? So support us. Join the $1 tier on Patreon, since that's the only tier. Get it on the ground level, or make an anonymous donation via PayPal, or send us nothing, or buy some CBDs via our Hemp Lucid Spaced Out campaign. Interested in buying CBDs, click the links below the video and use our link to head to the Spaced Out campaign, specifically formulated and named for our Spaced Out viewers. KP index has dropped back down to 1. X-ray flux has seen a tiny couple perturbations here as we saw some sunspots, but we haven't even seen a B-class flare since July 7th. Electron flux has finally leveled out. We saw very high levels, and those were solar electrons, folks. We talked about it yesterday. If you didn't view yesterday's video, go view yesterday's video. YouTube.com/smAshomash. Here's the total electron content, and we see this has dropped down to more nominal levels here. Everybody's GPSs should be working well. The main errors will be around west of India, Saudi Arabia, and northern Africa. Otherwise, and even there, those GPS errors are only going to be about, I don't know, 6 meters, something like that. Here are the aurora forecasts. Borealis on the left and Australis on the right. If these look like a two-dimensional portion of a Birkeland current to you, I agree, since that's exactly what they are. Anyway, I like this animation. Please leave a comment if you want to see this as a future featured link. I think we'll do it. Here's the ionosphere map. We'll load the animation for you. This one courtesy of Australian Government Bureau of Meteorology. And we see a very discharged ionosphere, both on the day and nighttime sides. Moving on. GO's magnetometer is continuing to see big striations. This looks like an error, possibly caused by something like cosmic ray flux. Very unlikely that the GOES 15 is measuring 0 nanotesla. And we'll look at the forecastability of this in just a moment. There's the GOES magnetometer. Here's the Gong 2 data. Let's just make sure we have the newest here. Now, keep in mind this is an hour and 8 minutes old and can change with absolutely no warning, the same way sunspots form. And we do see some continued activity here rising on the eastern portion of the sun. And we expect to see continued striations in the GOES magnetometer as there is a bumpy magnetic road ahead, at least for the next 2 days or so. Follow us on other social media. For instance, the channel is on Facebook, facebook.com/smAshomash. You don't have to capitalize the A's like we do, folks. Also, follow me on Instagram. You may see things that you won't see other places. In fact, you certainly will, because we post different stuff there. Instagram.com/smAshomash. We're also on Twitter to make it easier for our viewers to share the videos. Also on Gab, trying to interact there more. Shout out to David Dubine, who's also on Gab. Also on Minds.com, the open source social media that won't censor you. It won't shadow ban you. It'll just give you all of your views. So check it out. Get an account on Minds. Help us get to 500,000 views there, where we only have 702 subscribers. Korgrog, yes, I was very angry about the no reach around. Yes, that really hurt my feelings, but I got over it. If you enjoy the content on this channel, please press like, press subscribe, do whatever you're supposed to do. Click the links in the description below the video, the box, whatever it is. Learn more. I have no idea. We put up one yesterday about the sun. Some images of the sun as well as some backyard video of the sun. Let's hope I don't get a copyright strike by showing my own content. Just kidding, folks. It's not copyrighted. I shot a video of the sun yesterday. So if you want to check that out, feel free. If not, we don't mind. Earthquake rundown. Let's see how fast I can read. Here's a 4.6 in the Philippines at 168.4 kilometers. Heads up for a larger quake at the surface there. Deep quake at Tonga, 4.2 there. Earthquake risk very high with the coronal hole magnetic connection, especially as the magnetosphere has just relaxed after big striations. 4.5 in Indonesia. Again, if you're in an earthquake-prone zone, especially one being hit by heavy earthquakes, by deep earthquakes rather, please be on alert. Have a plan. Check it out, a 4.6 in Uganda, in the African Rift Zone. Some weird seismic stuff going on there lately. Please leave a comment if you think this part of Africa is going to break off and form into its own planet. Anyway, there's a location of that 4.6, an odd place for a quake. Perhaps a new plate boundary shall be drawn there. I'm not going to conjecture. I guess I just did conjecture. 4.9 at the East Pacific Rise, 4.8 at Russia. That one's at 41.8 kilometers. Near Kamchatka. 4.6 at Indonesia. That one at a similar depth to the Russian quake. Here's a deep one at Costa Rica. That one at 102.8 kilometers. Heads up there for a larger quake at the surface. That one could do some damage. Here's a 4.1 east of Kamchatka, 5.9 at Vanuatu. That one's also at depth. Heads up Oceania for a larger quake at the surface. Again, coronal hole connections tend to be an indicator of large quakes. 4.4 at Nicaragua. Here's the largest quake of the past 24 hours. It's just occurred about 4 hours ago. Vanuatu receives a 5.8 at depth, which does not relax their earthquake threat. Since it's at depth, since there's a coronal hole connection, looks like an old volcanic island there too. Check it out. Mount Ambe. Not too old, as it's erupted in the past year. Also, we see a 4.8 at Fiji, that one at depth. And a 4.7 near Easter Island. Super weird part of the planet there, folks. Very desolate. It looks like a 90-degree angle in the plate boundary. As you can see, these striations going east to west, and these ones going north and south. Strange part of the world, folks. If you weren't aware, Easter Island is a possession of Chile. Or if you prefer, Chile. Anyway, have an earthquake plan because coronal hole connection ongoing right now. Here's a pressure map courtesy Windy. Trying to learn to speak the English language courtesy of Windy.com. We'll let this pressure map advance for about 1 day. If If you see an anomalous looking pressure system headed toward you and you're in an earthquake prone zone, especially one that's experienced deep quakes, that's another risk factor. Things like tropical cyclones are known to hit at the same time as earthquakes, adding insult to injury. Volcano rundown. Strombolian eruptions. Explosive activity has increased further. Son of a beehive. Strombolian eruptions. Let's click on that real quick. Thermal signatures there. And let's run down the list. Also, Mount Etna has turned back on once again, ongoing eruption. Mount Aso, possible activity. Suwanisajima in the Ryukyu Islands, unknown volcanic ash cloud. Sanjiang-api is exploding, 8,000-foot plume there. Tokono exploding, 6,000-foot plume there. Sangay exploding, 20,000-foot plume there. Revenador and Sabancaya both exploding, 16,000-foot and 27,000-foot ash plumes there, respectively. Please do not fly your ultralight home-built kit aircraft over that. Do not John Denver into the caldera of Sabancaya. And here's another one on the list. Villarrica in central Chile. No emissions detected. It must be on some sort of a watch list. Let's move on to global warming. And we're talking about Roy Spencer here, who's talking about actual data. And I think I missed something there. Here's the actual climate data. We will leave links to the Roy Spencer site. Former NASA scientist, climatologist, and author. Let's look at the jets. Major southern double jet down there. Going to be bringing some very cold air to Australia, as well as some hot air toward Antarctica. Doubled up jet stream, meridional jet stream flow going due north and south, making a 180-degree bend. Very convective down there in the south, and almost entirely convective forces in the north. Although, looks like summer's over, folks. The jet stream is reforming in the northern hemisphere, and for that, we thank you. We got some Sasquatch activity going on down here in northern Florida, as well as in the Panhandle. These two areas appear to be Sasquatch related. If you have any video of a thing looking like Chewbacca coming out of the sky, or perhaps psychically linking with you, please leave a comment or other evidence there. See some heavy storms over northern West Virginia as well as eastern Nebraska. Let's zoom in on one via the water vapor map. And I'm looking at this one because this one could end up in my backyard later today, not to mention my front yard. There's that convergence zone, courtesy NASAGO's interactive water vapor map. This is the NASAGO's interactive weather satellites. If you want to look that up, easy to find. Great resolution. And let's do a bonus. We'll look at this area over Kansas, as this is the strongest storm in the U.S. right now. Very odd motion of this storm as it's moving southeast. And enough said about that. Let's move on to the That's an Ass and That's a Hole in the Ground section. Let's talk neonicotinoids. It's any class of systemic water-soluble insecticides chemically related to nicotine that are used especially in agriculture to control destructive pests, such as aphids and mites, that selectively bind to the postsynaptic nicotinic receptors of insects and produce paralysis and death. In other words, the invention of the
neonicotinoid
is pure evil. Why? Because it's killing beneficial insects, as everybody who doesn't have their head up there you-know-what is aware. Here's another example of how it works. Some harmful insects produce a substance known as honeydew, which is a sticky liquid. And when they eat things containing sugars, they produce this, which is often consumed later by beneficial bugs. Things like parasitic wasps will come and eat the honeydew. And so this is yet another mechanism by which insects that don't even eat the plants are being killed off by neonicotinoids. Let's talk about solutions once again, as this channel doesn't just whine and whinge. Using diatomaceous earth as insecticide. Now, a lot of people have this for their pool filters, which is how I discovered it, really. But diatomaceous earth is a fantastic insecticide, and it's pretty much harmless. You don't want to inhale it. You can even eat small amounts of it. And there's even dietary diatomaceous earth made from freshwater diatoms out there, believe it or not. The mechanism by which this works is just a physical mechanism. It creates a chemical minefield for the insects. You got to keep the powder dry, but what happens is when insects or worms try to make it over a bed of diatomaceous earth. Now, you can spray this stuff into your walls. You can just shoot it into your walls. It's a powder, a very fine dust. You don't want to inhale it. But if you spray this over areas where bugs are walking around, they will try to find a new path, and they will completely abandon the path, because this substance dries out their waxy membranes. So things like insects, they have flexible segments around their legs, and this stuff will damage it, as diatoms are essentially little pieces of glass, the skeletons of ancient diatoms. Let's talk about scams, at least a few different scams. Scotty Kilmer is going to talk about vehicle inspection scams, which are a complete scam, and I wasn't aware of how serious of a scam it was until I watched Scotty's video. Now, we will put a link to this also after the live stream, so come back in a few minutes if you're viewing it live and you want to see links to this, or you could just type in why state car inspections are a scam in DuckDuckGo and you'll get it right away. Let's just play a clip. Take it away, Scotty.
They're just a tax that people are paying to have the car inspected every year that the state government gets to collect. And the same figure shows true for Florida.
Turns out that states that have state inspections don't have a lower number of fatal accidents. So, yeah, it's a scam. Auto manufacturers are forced to put all kinds of redundancies in the safety mechanisms of their vehicles, as they know that some of the vehicles are going to be in places that don't require inspections. If your tires are bald, you're going to hydroplane in a downpour. If your brakes are worn out, they're going to start to squeak. There are all kinds of safety redundancies built into the automobile, and state safety inspections should be illegal, as they're nothing more than a tax. Let's talk about more local scams. School property taxes. Now, how many people do you know who own a property that's completely paid off, and every year they got to scramble to figure out how they're going to pay their property tax or their school tax or whatever the crooked-ass local municipality wants to call it? People who own these properties are forced to lease their properties and fund local governments who do nothing but nickel and dime them for all kinds of code enforcement violations. School property taxes are an absolute cancer and should be completely destroyed. There's a push for this in Pennsylvania. Thank God, HB 13. And if you're located in Pennsylvania, or if you're located anywhere, Please tell your local legislator, whether it's a national legislator, local legislator, that leasing a property that you already own in order to prevent it from being confiscated by the local government is crap. Let's talk about another scam, Google. Google's being sued for electioneering by Tulsi Gabbard. Were you aware of that? Google doesn't pay us anything for this channel despite you getting to see ads. Were you aware of that? Google does not return objective search results. Were you aware of that? Google tries to shake down channels that it doesn't even pay, such as ours, for money in order to be listed higher on search result listings. Were you aware of that? Were you aware that Google was the largest donor to the Hillary Clinton campaign, actually parent company Alphabet, spent $34 million operating the digital branch of the Hillary Clinton campaign? How'd that work out for you, Google? Are you enjoying President Clinton? Last but not least, Google was indeed actively interfering in the 2016 presidential election. If you weren't aware, it was all over the internet. And that's when we started our channel, because it made us a little bit angry. The main source that was documented the most was in search suggestions. Well, go look up the Mark Dice video about Google manipulating search suggestions in order to elect Hillary Clinton. Again, hey Eric Schmidt, hey Google, transcribe this. How'd that Hillary Clinton campaign work out for you? Looks like your scam's not working out too well, folks. And guess what? There are companies out there fixing the internet, such as DuckDuckGo, which will return objective search results. It will not store your personal information, ever, since it doesn't need that to be an efficient search engine. Also, it won't follow you around with ads, and even if you're not in private browsing mode, it still won't track you. DuckDuckGo.com, returning objective search results. Also, check out Brave.com, a real browser, a great substitute for Google's junkware known as Chrome. Now, most of the software Google makes is junkware, but especially the Chrome browser, as it barely even functions. So experience faster page load times, better ad blocking, and better everything in Brave browser. It's what we use to make these videos, since you are not a product. So thanks again for tuning into the smAsho stream, everybody who has. Please subscribe to the channel and press like and so on. We're gonna keep going. How about some bonus articles? Were you aware that there are some freshwater fish that live to 112 years? How do we know? By counting ear bones. They're very much like tree rings. We will put links to this article from The Sun. We're talking about the big-mouth buffalo. And yeah, turns out some freshwater fish are living to over 100 years of age. Giving our goldfish new hope. Hey, Jaws, Phelps, and Jim, shout out to you dudes. I think your life expectancy may have gone up. Let's talk about crazy outflows of hot wind from a, quote, black hole, end quote. This article on phys.org talking about an object that we're going to talk about more in depth. Swift J1357.2-0933, another catchy name. An interesting X-ray transient located about 25,000 light years away in the Milky Way galaxy. This is kind of like an eclipsing binary, but in black hole form. So, interesting stuff about this thing's transients. If you want to follow them yourself, by the way, this is what it would look like. This is an artist's rendition of it. We've got this large object rotating around this even larger object, or I'll say more massive radio source at a very high rate of speed. If you want to follow the transients, just go to the Swift Bat Alert Telescope, the Neil Garrels, and type in J1357.2-0933, and there are the transients from this object. Anyway, there's what the page looks like, the Neil Garrels Swift Observatory. BAT stands for Burst Alert Telescope. We have telescopes that are just strictly designed to detect and quickly measure transients from all kinds of massive objects. As promised, we're going to go to the colored magnetogram to show you the fields nice and close of Sunspot 2747, and then we are going to exit stage left. There are the fields associated with that. Let me let that play for a minute as I read your comments, see if there's any questions, and then bolt like lightning. No pun intended.